Hey ya, it's your elusive boy Jonathan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be reviewing Lady Gaga's brand new album Chromatica. The album was released last week and it debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 charts, selling over 274,000 equivalent album units in the United States, making it the biggest sales week for any album by a woman in 2020. Now, let's begin with some of the interviews of the era and how it impacted my initial expectation with the album before I get into my official review. Not gonna lie, there were genuine times in some of her interviews where it just got me confused. Like her mentioning how Chromatica is not a world but a perspective in her Paper magazine interview, for example. At least her interviews weren't like the ones during the art pop era, for example.
There was really a void of vanity. And as the blood rushed out of my body, how do I explain it?
Still, at least she does make some sense in some of her interviews this era. In the interview with Paper magazine, she mentioned, "The human spirit is more fucking powerful than anything. I think Chromatica is the most honest thing I could have created, and I'll never forget making this record. It's been one of the most special and hard times in my life." End quote. There were times like those where it got me excited for the record because I had a feeling that she is creating something interesting with this record despite the release of Stupid Love. There's a clear theme and specific color palette in mind, which showed that she knew what she and her team were clear about wanting to convey a certain vibe with this record. Now, let's talk about the album as a whole. I was honestly blown away by the cohesiveness of this album. That aspect of the album is incredible and on another level compared to her previous works. I feel like it shows that Gaga and her team were dedicated in making Chromatica a genuine body of work. Also, a lot of the songs on the album have strong lyrics and it's telling. Without even listening to the melody of the song, just reading the lyrics, it's clear that this album was a therapeutic journey for her in a lot of ways. As she addressed themes of PTSD due to sexual assault, depression, loneliness, finding love through hardships, and more. Production-wise, it harks back to the 90s dance music, which also includes genres such as house, techno, disco, funk, trance, Eurodance, EDM, and the new wave music. The inspirations are prominent throughout the entire album. There were some genuine moments where the production of the songs blew me away, like in some of my favorite tracks, which I'll get into in a bit. But honestly, there were times where I felt like she and her producers decided to head into a safer route instead of pursuing a more experimental production. I'll elaborate about this in some of my least favorite songs later in the video. However, one thing that I love from the album is the interludes that precedes each section of the album. Chromatica I's orchestral sound had this grandeur feel to it, like you entered a magical world of hope and endless possibilities. That incredibly smooth transition into Alice was beautiful as well. Chromatica II's orchestral sound had this tinge of sadness to it and brought forth that feeling of pain and anxiety. That was how I perceived that interlude to be. The transition from Chromatica II leading into 9/11 is the best section in the album I've ever heard. It was so smooth, clean, and unexpected. Chromatica III, on the other hand, had this spacey yet hopeful orchestral sound which led into Sign from Above. These separate sections really helped me to come up with a proper theory on what the album is about. Based on those three sections, this is my theory of what the entire album is about. Chromatica I is basically her wanting to seek enjoyment and fulfillment by chasing huge pop hits. We have songs that were made singles like Stupid Love and Rain on Me. Chromatica II features her caving into a darker sense of mind, losing herself while her true selves hide away behind a wall that she built. She wants to break free from it, but dismantling those walls is difficult and takes time. Chromatica III, on the other hand, features her finding peace once more through music and her not being fazed by the media and gossip any longer. You go through the whole motion with Sign from Above and A Thousand Doves before ending it with Babylon. Now, let's talk about my top 3 favorites of the album. The first song is Alice. I would argue that this is the best song of Chromatica for various reasons. Although the inspiration of these themes are taken from Alice in Wonderland, somehow the song also gave me some Matrix vibes as well. It's also probably due to the cover art of the album though, but anyway, gosh, the intro is phenomenal. Those vocals in the intro especially really makes you feel like you're living in an ascended simulated paradise. There's this tender balance between the feeling of hopelessness and wanting to go down the rabbit hole throughout the song. You could hear that tug of war between her feeling of hopelessness and inner hope that things will get better. Even when you go into the second verse of the song, which had this robotic vocoder effect on her voice, it works amazingly in the context of the song. It's like she's living a simulated reality, which makes sense because she's a celebrated musician living in a social media dependent world in this day and age. It's hard to find peace in a world of chaos like social media, and there's a constant need for her to seek out Wonderland, which I enjoyed. One thing I must add though, the pre-chorus of the song where the backing vocals go "Oh Mama Ma" was incredible and reminded me of the way she did the backing vocals on Monster, which is my favorite Gaga song of hers. The production of the song is phenomenal as well, using sparse instrumentation to start off the intro before it dives right into the deep house vibe. It's the small details that she adds to the production, like the build-up drum pattern in the second post-chorus of the song, before exploding and leaving this infectious melody inside your head. The editing on her vocals by creating delayed echoes in the chorus of the song, combined with the backing vocals of the song, just adds this mystical feel to the song. The repetition of the lyrics feels justified, as well as it bodes extremely well because of the gorgeous production that leaves listeners on a journey. Personally, I think this song should have been the lead single of the album. Previously, during her interview with Paper magazine, she joked that when hackers typically find her material, they'll leak their favorite, which validated her decision to make the track open the Chromatica era. Frankly, that's such a misfire, especially when she has a song like Alice that introduces her into the world of Chromatica perfectly. The second favorite of mine of the album is Sour Candy, a collaboration between Lady Gaga and K-pop group Blackpink. When this collaboration was initially confirmed, I wasn't sure how it would turn out. It was such a random pairing, but somehow the collaboration worked out amazingly well. The way each Blackpink member would smoothly glide across the beat of the song with their voices while Gaga contrasted that with some harder vocals. In a way, the contrast worked and it all connected back to the beat of the song in the background. The smoothness of the leading melodic production with the drums, really makes this song have that spacey effect, which I also really enjoy. Also, her speaking voice in this song works really well too, providing this break from the singing parts of the song while also maintaining the production in the background to be similar. I love how she alternated between speaking and singing while the production in the background ascends and descends. This makes it less repetitive because of the break that was provided, despite that part being kind of repetitive on its own way, ironically. Initially, my issue with the song was how short the song was, but I felt like the length of the song made sense. It's right for streaming, but also when you take a sour candy, for example, the taste of sourness lasts for a pretty short while before you uncover the sweetness beneath it all. It just made sense in the grand scheme of things, at least to me. The third favorite song of the album has to be 911. I would also argue that this song contains some of the best lyrics of the album. The verses for the song alone is incredible. The nuances that Gaga used in the lyrics of the song is gorgeous, and while parts of the song are really repetitive, it works extremely well in the favor of the song. Take the chorus of the song for example. The chorus of the song is repetitive, but the slight changes here and there in her intonation really breaks it off from it being too repetitive, I feel. I think that's why it worked in the context of the song and why it didn't feel like it was mindlessly repetitive. One of my favorite parts of the song is the pre-chorus. Her vocal delivery in the pre-chorus of the song goes up to the top and creates this slight tension and build-up, which disperses in the chorus of the song. The production in the pre-chorus is beautiful as well, with the drums creating that sense of desperation throughout, which contrasts with the beautiful vocal delivery that Gaga used. The combination of these techniques really created an amazing atmosphere of duality that works amazingly well. Now, let's talk about my top 3 least favorite songs of the album. So, the first least favorite track on the album for me is Stupid Love. I've already said my thoughts of the song, so I won't talk about it too much. Instead, I'll talk about the song in the context of the album. Stupid Love just disrupts the flow of the album. The part pops in right after the ethereal Alice really makes me get out of this setting that Alice has set for the Chromatica universe. I don't know what was going through her head when she decided to play Stupid Love right after Alice. It just sticks out like a sore thumb and doesn't fit well with the rest of the record in my opinion, considering how this is her most cohesive album yet. Personally, I think Alice flows incredibly well into Rain on Me, so this is what I shall do. The second song that's my least favorite of the Chromatica album is Free Woman. This song isn't bad per se, but it's certainly one of the worst songs of the album for a few reasons. Lyrically, I found it really solid, with lines like "This is my dance floor that I fought for," and "I'm not nothing without a steady hand." I really thought we were going to get this dark yet hopeful banger of a song. But when you compare this song with most of the other songs on the album, the production of the song falls extremely flat. It feels like a generic EDM song that was released in 2015 or something. You know, like those DJ that just grabbed her vocals and created a remix of the song for dance clubs. The breakdown of the song after each chorus just feels cheap and overused by a lot of DJs out there, and doesn't necessarily make the song sound interesting at all. Also, the lack of a proper bridge makes the song sound shorter than it actually is. I feel like if she had added some vocal effects or additional verses in that section of the song, it would have added more flair to it. In addition to that, when you compare the song to the demo of the song, The final version of the song just doesn't reach the heights that I wanted it to go. Personally, I think the demo of the song is way better. The dark vibes, shuddering bass in the song was present alongside the feeling of hope that made for an interesting production. I think that was what Gaga was trying to achieve with this song before her fellow producers came into the mix because the song had so much potential. The third song that's my least favorite of the Chromatica album is Plastic Doll, another song that I felt had a lot of potential. Like Free Woman, the song is lyrically strong, but parts of the song just doesn't do it for me, which is why it's here. I could get what they are trying to go for with the intro of the song, but I dislike the contrast of the production during the intro and the way her vocals were edited there. The rattling drum beat in the background really gets distracting at times in the verses, and I can't help but feel like if they had changed that up with something else less jarring, it would have made the song sound way better. I do have a favorite part for this song though, which is the chorus of the song. The delivery of her vocals throughout the chorus of the song hits really hard, even though that rumbling drum beat I dislike is present. I really appreciated the fact that she held back her vocals a little as she went up into the higher ends of her voice before going down. I know that some people might feel that the bridge is genius, but honestly, I found it kinda cringe. She could have tried approaching the bridge better in my opinion because the current bridge just felt really on the nose. Like, take the bridge of Replay for example. She approached the lines beautifully but didn't go over the top with it. The melody of the bridge didn't bode well with me for some reason too. In conclusion, I feel like the album is Gaga's best album in a long while, especially when you take into account Art Pop and Joanne. Art Pop wasn't my favorite Gaga album aside from a few songs like Venus, GUI, the title track, and Applause. The album went so left field that it felt overproduced, noisy, and nonsensical at times. While the album caters to some of the monsters out there, the album as a whole didn't do it for me. Joanne had similar highlights of its own, but it had some drawbacks as well. In her latest Apple Music interview with Zane Lowe, she mentioned how the Joanne album was her way of attempting to heal her dad's trauma through music. It's no wonder why, in the grand scheme of things, the album didn't feel quintessentially her. It isn't wrong for her to attempt that, and I respect her for doing so, but in doing so, it felt like she was letting go of what made her a pop star. Moving back to Chromatica though, one of my issues I had with this album was that I felt it was relatively safe. There's nothing wrong with a record being safe, but I just can't help but feel like some of the productions were watered down for the sake of making it more accessible. Some of the breakdowns could have been expanded upon to make it more intricate or interesting, but it sounded like some of the songs got diluted in the process. I know it's a little contradictory for me to ask Gaga to experiment a little more when I dislike art pop, but I genuinely felt like there was potential for this album to achieve more, especially when you have the visuals hinting at that experimentation aspect. There were moments where she achieved that balance, with songs like Alice and 911. There's this eccentricity and experimentation to them that harks back to classic Gaga while not being overproduced. Is this the album the best Gaga album I've ever heard? Nope. It still doesn't top Born This Way for me. However, I can say it easily sits at the Fame Monsters table. The only reason why the Fame Monster isn't above Chromatica is because it's a reissue and not a full-length album of its own. The Fame Monster had higher heights, while Chromatica had incredible cohesion, something I really appreciate. To rate this album, I'd give it a 7 out of 10 for the album. Just because this album had a lot of potential, but at the same time she kept it relatively safe. Anyway, let me know your thoughts about the Chromatica album and what are your favorite songs of the album. Thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace!